Welcome to my channel. Here, we share inspiring stories of brave and strong people. Maybe you'll see yourself or someone you know in these stories. Thank you for watching. A lone motorcycle's engine roars through the dusty street, headlights slicing the dusk. Sarah Cross stays perfectly still in the shadows. Which side will crack first, the criminal's iron hold or Sarah's carefully poised front? Eyes locked on the rundown café across from her. She's heard the whispers. Powerful men. Dark deals. And a pipeline feeding weapons into the wrong hands. Inside that café, the Iron Serpents flaunt their unchecked influence, bullying townspeople too scared to speak up. None suspect that the unassuming woman watching from the curb is an undercover agent, armed with a mission that could topple their entire operation. But one false step could expose her cover, shattering any chance of justice. Which side will crack first, the criminal's iron hold or Sarah's carefully poised front? Drop a comment and share where you're joining us from. If stories like this resonate with you, hit subscribe so you don't miss our next inspiring journey coming tomorrow. Sarah Cross wheeled into Mike's corner store, scanning for trouble. She spotted two Iron Serpents members leaning against the counter, smirking as they noticed her arrival. One flicked a toothpick aside. The other nudged his friend, murmuring something about easy prey. Sarah ignored them and reached for a carton of milk, maintaining her calm facade. A sudden shove rocked her chair. One biker snatched the milk from her hand, tossing it to the floor. "You lost, lady?" he asked, voice laced with contempt. Sarah glanced at him, quietly assessing his stance and possible weapons. She dealt with worse threats overseas. Another gang member kicked a shelf, scattering canned goods across the tiled floor. "No one wants a cripple messing up our turf," he sneered. Sarah inhaled, muscles tensing beneath her jacket. The store owner cowered behind the register, torn between calling for help and keeping his head down. She let the bikers believe she was cornered. In reality, she was an undercover FBI agent skilled in close-quarters combat. Her wheelchair was no hindrance, she'd modified it with hidden compartments. But she wouldn't escalate unless forced. Right now, intimidation was their game. One biker tried to yank the handles of her chair. Sarah pivoted smoothly, catching him off guard. She gripped his wrist and twisted, forcing him sideways. He crashed against a display of chips, cursing as he hit the floor. The second lunged, fists raised. But Sarah ducked low. She jabbed her elbow into his rib cage, then used her chair's solid frame to hook his legs, sending him sprawling. Breathless, they scrambled back, shock registering in their eyes. They hadn't expected real resistance. Sarah positioned herself near the exit, ready for more trouble. As if on cue, the door flew open, and Grant Maddox stepped inside. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore the Iron Serpents patch with pride. His dark eyes flicked between his fallen men and Sarah, narrowing in disdain. Maddox raised a brow. "You think you're tough, rolling in here?" His tone dripped with contempt. But Sarah noticed the hint of wariness. He recognized skill when he saw it. She stared back, silent, letting him read the challenge in her eyes. One of his men stumbled to his feet, face burning with embarrassment. Maddox waved him off. "We'll settle this later," he warned. "But mark my words, you just made a big mistake." Sarah didn't flinch. She had orders to infiltrate and dismantle the gang's weapons pipeline, a lucrative operation fueling violence across the region. Maddox didn't know who he was dealing with yet, but he would soon learn that underestimating her wheelchair was the real mistake. Without another word, Maddox stormed out, his men trailing, leaving the store in disarray. Sarah glanced at the store owner, who nodded shakily, grateful she had diffused the situation. She wheeled outside, adrenaline still coursing. Maddox would be back. She had to stay a step ahead if she wanted to crush the gang's criminal empire once and for all. Sarah wheeled into Abby's modest cafe early the next morning, slipping through the back entrance to avoid prying eyes. Abby locked the door behind her and hurriedly set down 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Sarah wasted no time, quietly explaining that she was an undercover FBI agent, tasked with taking down Grant Maddox and his expanding weapons trade. Abby's eyes widened, but she nodded, agreeing to help in any way possible. "They're growing bolder," Sarah noted. "Maddox is making moves, probably bribing people higher up. I need to act fast before the whole town falls under his grip." Abby leaned in. "He's been running everything from bar fights to smuggling. Even the local police seem wary of crossing him. Are they compromised? Or just scared?" Before Sarah could answer, the cafe door swung open. Grant Maddox strode in with 2 gang members at his side. Ignoring the closed sign, customers froze, recognizing trouble. Maddox zeroed in on Sarah, his tone thick with menace. "Couldn't help noticing you made friends in this little town," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "Hope you're not planning anything stupid." Sarah stared back, feigning indifference. "I'm enjoying a coffee. Same as anyone." He chuckled darkly. "Word travels fast here. Some of my friends at City Hall say you like to dig into people's business." He tapped a finger on the counter. "Stay out of mine. Or else." With that, Maddox and his entourage departed, leaving an uneasy hush behind them. Abby exhaled, wiping her brow. "He mentioned City Hall? That sounds like someone high up is tipping him off." Sarah gritted her teeth. "I have to confirm who's involved." Her phone buzzed, displaying a string of numbers. A coded message from Agent Cooper. She quickly decrypted the text. "Leak suspected inside your op. Trust no one fully. Cooper out." Her heart sank. Cooper's warning implied someone within the FBI, or local authorities, was working against her. It explained Maddox's confident threats. She glanced at Abby. "He's got connections in law enforcement. Or maybe the mayor's office. This is bigger than I thought." They heard the roar of motorcycles outside. Sarah recognized it as a sign the Iron Serpents were watching her every move. If Maddox had inside help, her cover might unravel soon. She quickly formulated a plan. "I can't wait for more intel," she said, voice low. "I need to corner this gang before they tighten the noose. Keep your eyes open. Abby, don't trust anyone until I say otherwise." Abby nodded firmly. "Whatever you need." Sarah collected her phone, mentally calculating the next steps. She needed to accelerate the takedown, uncover who was leaking info, and hit Maddox's weapons network where it hurt. Time was running out, and every moment spent idle gave the gang a chance to fortify. As she exited, she could already sense unseen eyes tracking her wheelchair from across the street, confirming the stakes had just risen. Sarah packed clothes into a worn duffel bag while Abby carried boxes to the truck, both making a show of loading Sarah's belongings. A couple of the Iron Serpents idled across the street, arms folded, watching every move with self-satisfied grins. Abby slammed the tailgate, shooting Sarah a meaningful look. They both understood this was their shot at convincing the gang that she was gone for good. As the sun dipped low, Sarah sat behind the truck's wheel controls, modified for her needs, driving out of Pine Valley in plain sight. The bikers followed from a distance, confident in their intimidation tactics. Once she reached the highway, Sarah feigned a fuel stop at a lonely gas station. Abby continued down the road alone, drawing the Iron Serpents away. Meanwhile, Sarah slipped quietly back through a side route, returning to a discreet safe house on the outskirts of town. From this hidden vantage point, she activated a portable surveillance rig. Key cameras were already in place near the Iron Serpents' hangout. She watched grainy footage of Maddox pacing alongside crates marked with cryptic symbols, likely smuggled weapons. Eavesdropping on muffled conversations confirmed a new shipment arriving soon at an abandoned lumber yard. Chief Anderson's name floated through the audio, spoken with what sounded like half respect, half fear. Hearing it sent a chill through Sarah's spine. She'd suspected the chief might be compromised, but now she had near proof. If the local law enforcement was in on this, she'd have to proceed without official backup. Cooper's warning about a leak also rang in her ears. Any misstep could blow her cover or result in open violence on the streets. She zoomed the camera feed, spotting two uniformed officers casually chatting with Razor, one of Maddox's right-hand men. They seemed too friendly, shaking hands before disappearing off-screen. The realization sank in deeper. Pine Valley was compromised at more levels than she'd feared. She resisted the urge to confront them outright. The moment needed a precise strike, not a reckless showdown. Back at the safe house, Sarah used a burner phone to text Abby a single line, "Hook set. Stay quiet." Abby replied with an all-good signal, confirming she had successfully led the bikers away. With the Serpents convinced Sarah was gone, their guard would drop, giving her an opening to sabotage the incoming shipment. She double-checked her wheelchair's specialized compartments, tactical gear, a backup pistol, and a few carefully stashed surprises. Under cover of darkness, Sarah finalized her plan. She'd exploit the gang's overconfidence, hitting them at the lumber yard when they believed they had free rein. Chief Anderson's probable betrayal only heightened her resolve. Maddox might think he owned Pine Valley, but soon he'd learn how deadly Sarah Cross could be. Even without official backup or the element of open trust, she powered down her surveillance rig, the next move clear in her mind. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel. It means so much to us. Now, let's get back to the story. Sarah rolled onto the abandoned lumber mill property under the cover of darkness. Heart pounding but focus razor sharp. Floodlights illuminated stacks of rotting timber, flaring across a makeshift yard where the Iron Serpents had set up a high-stakes meeting. She spotted at least 3 vehicles unloading crates, each man guarded by Maddox's enforcers. A second group, likely rival buyers, stood at the far side, guns slung over their shoulders. She slipped behind a decaying conveyor belt, her wheelchair maneuvering quietly across the uneven ground. The night air reeked of mildew and gasoline. Above the din she heard Razor barking orders, ensuring the crates were handled with care. Maddox was nowhere in sight, but Sarah sensed he'd be close, orchestrating from the shadows. She waited for her opening. Suddenly, arguments flared between the buyers and Razor. Tension spiked as a buyer accused the Serpents of shortchanging them. Voices rose, and a gunshot shattered the uneasy silence. Sarah seized the chaos to move in, deploying a small flash device from her wheelchair's hidden compartment. It detonated near the gang's position, disorienting them. Shouts of confusion erupted. Sarah darted forward, staying low, scanning for her primary target, Robert Silas, a disgraced former colonel rumored to be supplying weapons. She spotted a tall man in fatigues hovering near a set of crates, eyeing the conflict with measured calm. Sarah recognized him from intel photos. This was Silas. She swooped in, using quick strikes adapted to her seated position. 2 gang members went down hard before they could aim their weapons. Silas attempted to flee, but Sarah cut him off by spinning her chair's wheels in a tight arc, blocking his path. He lunged, but she countered with a baton hidden in the wheelchair's side panel, forcing him to the ground. He struggled, but a quick maneuver secured him. "Who are you?" he spat, eyes wide. "FBI," she snapped back, voice low. "You're done." All around them, rival buyers and serpents exchanged fire. Razor stumbled away, clutching an arm wound, while the buyers retreated to their trucks. Sarah rested Silas behind a half-collapsed stack of lumber, pressing him for answers. He sneered, mentioning a deeper operation, an architect. Then he dropped the bomb, "Agent Cooper's in on this. You never stood a chance." The words rattled Sarah, confirming her worst suspicions of betrayal. Sirens blared in the distance. Whether it was Chief Anderson's men or more corrupt cops, Sarah couldn't risk hanging around. She handcuffed Silas to a rusted support beam for later retrieval, snapping photos of his ID and the crates as evidence. Explosions of light from gunfire raged across the yard, forcing her to retreat. She veered around the main building, avoiding scattered bullets and diving behind a battered forklift. With adrenaline surging, Sarah found a gap in the fence and slipped through, leaving the raging firefight behind. She had enough intel now to expose not just Maddox but the operation's bigger players and the corruption lurking closer to home. Sarah holed up in a rundown motel on Pine Valley's outskirts, eyes trained on the battered door. After the chaos at the lumber mill, she'd managed to slip Silas's confession to a secure FBI contact, only to receive an urgent reply: "Cooper wants to meet, alone." Even with proof of betrayal, Sarah had no choice but to see what he'd say. When Nathan Cooper walked in, the tension could have snapped a steel beam. His usually neat tie was loosened, eyes flicking around the dim room. He bypassed small talk. "So you found out," he began, voice tight. "Silas mentioned my name. I assume." Sarah's jaw clenched. "He said you're working with someone called the architect." "Why? Cooper?" He sighed, dropping into a chair. "Hale. Rebecca Hale. She's behind the entire network. Smuggling, recruitment, weaponization, she orchestrates it all. And I'm part of it." The admission hung in the stale air. "Why?" Sarah pressed, incredulous. "You're supposed to protect this country, not sell it out." Cooper ran a hand through his hair. "Hale believes adversity creates stronger soldiers. She cripples some, recruits others. It's twisted. But she claims it's for a larger cause, one that keeps worse threats at bay." At first, it sounded logical. Then I realized the cost. People are dying. Sarah snapped. Or used as pawns. Cooper's gaze dropped. "I know. But if you think you can stop her, you're naive. Her reach is everywhere: law enforcement, politicians, even the FBI. You won't get official backup." Sarah's mind churned, recalling Maddox's confident threats and the rotting corruption she'd seen in Pine Valley. "So what now? You came here to confess?" "I came to warn you," Cooper said, tone grave. "Hale's next operation is bigger than the Iron Serpents. She has an advanced facility, quantum-level computing for tracking data, storing intel. She's moving to a new phase soon." Before Sarah could respond, the door burst open, revealing Abby with a pistol drawn. She'd insisted on watching Sarah's back. Shock etched across Cooper's face. Abby glanced between them, tension palpable. "He tries anything," she warned. I pulled his trigger. Cooper stood slowly, hands raised. "No tricks. But you can't do this alone." Sarah exchanged a look with Abby. "We don't have another choice. Hale played me from the start, my wheelchair, my cover. Everything. Abby placed a steady hand on Sarah's shoulder. We'll stop her. One way or another. Cooper exhaled. Hale won't go down without a fight. If you're serious, be prepared for a war. Sarah locked her gaze on him. I've been fighting one since I left Afghanistan. This won't be any different. He offered a single piece of paper, coordinates to the facility. Last thing I'll give you. It might already be too late. Sarah nodded, tucking the note away. She wheeled toward the door, Abby at her side. The lines were drawn. Hale's final operation loomed. And if the cost of stopping her meant going rogue, so be it. They'd stand alone if they had to. But they wouldn't let Hale's twisted vision continue unchecked. Sarah and Abby arrived at the secret facility under cover of darkness. A barbed wire fence enclosed row after row of high-tech equipment humming behind reinforced walls. They exchanged a quick glance. This was it. No backup. No second chances. A well-guarded side entrance offered the only realistic entry. Abby disabled the cameras with a handheld jammer she'd borrowed from Cooper's intel kit. Sarah rolled forward, scanning for hidden sentries. 2 armed guards patrolled the corridor inside. Abby tossed a small flash charge, and in a burst of blinding light, they took the guards down before an alarm could sound. Past the security checkpoint, a maze of corridors buzzed with electronics. Computer banks glowed, lines of code scrolling across multiple screens. Sarah recognized advanced quantum computing rigs, likely storing data on Hale's global operations. She hurried, every second risking detection. Footsteps echoed nearby. A squad of Hale's operatives rounded the corner, each bearing signs of prior trauma, prosthetics or scars. They aimed rifles. Eyes cold. Sarah propelled herself low and fast, hooking one gunman's legs with her wheelchair's frame while Abby opened fire, using non-lethal rounds to drop 2 more. The final operative hesitated, torn by Sarah's direct address. "You're not pawns," she said firmly. He lowered his weapon, disillusioned, allowing her to pass. Down a narrow flight of ramped steps lay a sealed chamber. The door hissed open, revealing Rebecca Hale perched before a massive console, monitors displaying cryptic intel. Hale turned, gaze razor sharp. "You just can't die quietly. Can you? Cross?" Sarah didn't rise to the bait. "You twist suffering into power. That ends tonight." Hale scoffed. "My methods catalyze evolution. You, of all people, should thank me for what you've become." Abby aimed her pistol. "Shut up and step away." Hale smirked. Too late. Her fingers flew over the console, initiating some remote protocol. Alarms blared. The entire facility rattled. Lights flickering. Data began purging itself from servers, probably scattering to backup nodes worldwide. Sarah lunged with her wheelchair, knocking Hale off balance. Abby rushed to the console, smashing at keys, trying to halt the data transfer. Hale lashed out, delivering a swift kick that almost toppled Sarah. In retaliation, Sarah grabbed Hale's arm, twisting it into a lock, adrenaline fueling her. Hale seethed. "You can destroy one node, but my vision is unstoppable." She struggled against the hold, but Sarah's technique held firm. Abby found the kill switch, forcibly shutting down the servers. Screens winked out, code disappearing mid-scroll. A few final sparks flared from the main console. Hale's scowl deepened. "Fools," she hissed. Sarah maneuvered behind her, restraining her arms. "No more illusions. Your network's dead." Sirens wailed, signaling emergency systems failing. Abby grabbed makeshift cuffs, binding Hale's wrists. In the distance, running footsteps signaled approaching authorities. Or maybe more corrupt forces. Either way, Sarah had dealt a decisive blow. She and Abby exchanged a resolute nod. Hale wouldn't threaten anyone else today. They'd torn down this twisted empire, proving that real strength, born of choice, not coercion, would always prevail. Sarah Cross faces the sunrise, uncertain what tomorrow holds. Her determination proved that even a wheelchair can be a powerful weapon when confronted with corruption. Do we stand alone or unite? Share your thoughts in this story with others. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.